And we're live. Hello and welcome to the Smart Elections Election Protection Forum. I'm Lulu Friesdat. I'm the Executive Director of Smart Elections.
And I am Bennie Smith, Shelby County Election Commissioner and a Technical Advisor for Smart Elections.
How was your day, Bennie?
It's long. Long.
Do you want to give us
skin on my hide?
Do you want to give us any details?
No, it was all music related. So I had my music today. One of my other.
So many hats.
Yeah, it's my other job.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're really glad that you're here with us, and we're really glad that you are here with us because we have a really, really interesting forum for you this evening. We're going to be talking about our Brooklyn Transparency Pilot Project, and this is our update about what we did since then and really going through the nitty-gritty of it and explaining it to you and why it's important and how it impacts what is coming next, which is, you know, staring down the barrel at us are the 2022 midterms. And let's face it, they are going to be really critical. You can see in legislation across the country that things are very, very close. You see at the, especially in the Senate, in the US Senate, how they need every single senator to get any legislation passed. And so when you have these elections at the midterms, so much is going to be hanging on them. And we are going to be watching them carefully, and we are going to be engaging poll watchers and public oversight in the same way that we did in the 2020 election, but adding in a number of new protocols. And they have to do with what we did in Brooklyn in our transparency pilot project. Bennie, you look so serious.
I'm sending you a PVL.
So it is serious, but we have to keep a sense of humor. We have to, you know, just stay positive about everything, because otherwise we're just gonna, you know,
pop.
We're just gonna what?
We're gonna pop.
We're gonna stress ourselves out, right? And you have to alleviate the stress. Politics is a blood sport, as Bennie likes to say, and it's really important to try to keep it in perspective and not to get too stressed out. So we're going to be talking about these oversight procedures that we've developed with the help of experts, and I have to kind of apologize in advance. It's a bit of a heavy math night, so get your calculators out, put your math hat on. Luckily, Bennie's really good at math, so I'm really glad that we have him here. And we're going to be looking at different protocols and different forms that can help us confirm that election results are accurate or can point to the problems that might exist with results. And one of the reasons this is so important is that we see that there are so many different groups and organizations now that are trying to verify election results. And we saw with the Arizona audit that there was a lot of pushback. People and election officials did not like the way that audit was done, and it created a tremendous amount of controversy. And so we need to find out what are those protocols that we can turn to that are more reliable, less controversial, that have the blessing and the experience of election experts, of election officials. So those are the techniques that we'll be turning to. And it is, as I said, really important that we go through this material. Bennie, are you still our Washington correspondent? Is that what's going on there? Because I thought you were were changing and you're going to be our Memphis County, or Shelby County.
I got to find a background that's the right size, because I need a really big background in order for it not to stretch and look ugly. So I'm still watching it from tonight.
How many computers do you have back there?
Six behind me, one on the side. Yeah.
Right. So you need a big image there. Okay. Yeah. Well, people can also put suggestions into the chat if they'd like Bennie to be our correspondent from any particular region of the country. We can do that, you know, on a rotating basis. We can.
If you got an image, send it. It just needs to be big. It's to be like 5,000 by 3,000.
All right. So we don't have any comments yet. We should just make sure. Can somebody throw a comment in the chat, and we'll make sure that people are actually hearing us. I know that I can see that there's people watching, but we have had in the past where it looked like people were watching, but the broadcast wasn't actually going out. So go ahead and just throw something in the chat that says, hey, I'm here. And then we'll know that you're with us. And we'll put up some of our banners, and we'll go through a little bit now of some of the information that you need just in order to stay in touch with us.
Kelly's here. Hey, Kelly.
Woo! Thanks. Kelly is a really terrific election protection advocate, and she does a lot of work in different forums. So it's great to have her here. Thanks so much for being here. And Marta's here. Marta is an author and also a longtime election security advocate. Hey, great to have you with us. So I do want to also do our identifications. One of the things that we're trying to do is to be more sensitive to voters with disabilities. And so one of the common techniques is to do a video description of yourself so that voters or viewers who can't actually see the screen have a sense of who you are. So we'll do that real quickly, and then also let you know that you can, cool. Hey, Mark. Hey, Donna. Great to have you with us. We want to let you know how you can activate the closed captioning if that's helpful to you. If you want the closed captioning, you need to watch on Facebook, and there are instructions on Facebook on how to activate the closed captioning, and we did send those out with the newsletter, so hopefully you have those. And if you want to watch on YouTube with closed captioning, really your only option right now is to wait until the end of the recording and then watch the final recording. You watch that recording at the same URL. So it's always the same spot. You can watch it live or recorded. Hey, Lon. Hey, Deb. Great to have you guys here. Wonderful to have you on board. So closed captioning, watch on Facebook, and just a quick video description. I'm Lulu Friesdat. I am a quite pale white woman because I rarely go out in the sun because I'm just always here at my computer checking on election information. I'm in a brown blazer, brown turtleneck. I have white headphones, long brown hair, a lot of brown going on here, and a brick wall behind me. And you can just see the tip of my that is my award from ABC News. I think it's what is it? An Emmy. We were nominated for an Emmy for that programming. So that's just the tip of my Emmy nomination award there in the corner of my screen. Bennie, do you want to do a video introduction?
Yeah, sure. I am Bennie Smith. I am a slightly darker black guy who used to have a crazy beard, but I finally took the hair off. So I'm nicely shaved or waxed. And I'm wearing a suit today. I have a blue suit on with a blue tie with red and some other colors in it. And I'm sitting in front of a series of monitors that is arranged like a desktop trader, a financial trader. So it's 3 monitors across the top and 3 monitors across the bottom. And I carry Rubik's Cubes because I like to solve them. Maybe I'll solve one on television. So I have some Rubik's Cubes behind me.
Oh my God, I never knew that. My mother is addicted to Rubik's Cubes.
Oh, I love to solve all these. I can solve all of them except for this one right here. That was from China, and I don't want to break it, so I'm leaving them alone.
Oh my God, we better do a whole program on Rubik's Cubes. Okay, so I think we're ready to roll here. So I want to just also give you information about how to stay in touch with us. We are Smart Elections, and you can find us at smartelections.us on the internet, and you can reach us at contact@smartelections.us. And I would love for you to email us at smartelections.us, especially right now when we are fundraising and sending out applications to foundations and grants. If you want to send us a quick email that just says what you really have benefited from in terms of our work, whether that's gaining confidence in the elections or understanding them better because of our public oversight work or our forums where we've had experts from across the country, including experts from historians, election security experts, auditing experts, Pulitzer Prize nominees. If you've really enjoyed and benefited from the forums and have learned a lot, we'd love to hear about that. Or anything else that you want to talk about our work, our collaboration with different organizations to really try to organize more effectively. Those are the 3 prongs of our work. And we would love to have you email us and let us know in what way it's benefited you, because that is information that we can send to foundations. And go ahead and put your name on that and let us know that it's okay to forward that on or to use it in our newsletters. That's contact@smartelections.us. You can also just put those comments in the chat if that's easier for you. That's also fine. And if you want to tell us things that you want improved, go ahead and send that to us also. Any criticism, constructive criticism, always welcome. So I think that wraps up our overview. And I want to now talk about the Brooklyn Transparency Pilot Project that we conducted. And we did this in June of 2021, so it was last year during the primary. And we started a public oversight project during the election. And we targeted a very small number of polling locations. We just, there were 8 polling locations that we were looking at. It was for one city council race in Brooklyn. And what we found was actually really remarkable. We didn't expect to find anything remarkable, but we did. Just getting like some feedback. Are you hearing that?
No.
Is that just me? No. Maybe that'll solve that. So I'm going to show you the form that we used and walk you through it very carefully so you can see what some of the problems were with it. There were some locations that we looked at where everything looked pretty normal, and there were some locations where there were some real red flags. In particular, there was one location where we found approximately 700 more ballots scanned than voters who checked in. And do you want to just say briefly, as an election commissioner, Bennie, why that would be such a problem to have more ballots scanned than voters who checked in?
Yeah, that sounds like ballot stuffing. As soon as you hear it, you should never. Yeah, we always say you should never have more votes than voters. If it's one person, one vote, that should technically the accounting should equal one person, one vote. If you have 2 votes for one person, it's because somebody did something wrong and spoiled it, and they got another one, and that accounting should explain that away.
Right. There's separate accounting. If somebody spoils a ballot, that's always taken into account, and those ballots are kept separate. But one voter, one vote. The number of voters who check in should be equivalent to the number of ballots that get scanned. When you're talking about registered, legitimate voters that check in and are allowed to vote, that should be approximately equal to the number of ballots scanned. Sometimes you might have a few less ballots scanned because sometimes voters just don't complete the process. They might check in and then maybe they get a call and they have to go right back to work, or maybe the ballot just overwhelms them and they don't complete it for whatever reason. A few less ballots scanned than voters, pretty normal. Never, never do you want to see more ballots scanned than voters. And yet that is actually what we did encounter at this one location in 2021. So I'm going to show you what we found that particular night. And I'm going to also walk you through some other somewhat concerning things that we found. And we are actually currently in the process of doing another transparency project today in another county in Westchester. So we're doing the same pilot in Westchester today, and we'll be able to report back about that. So let's go ahead and take a look at this page. This is that's the close-up, and we're going to want to look first, I think, at the wide shot of the ballots that we found. Okay, so this is the form. And just give me 1 second and I'll be sharing this so you'll be able to see it also. This is the form that we developed. And we developed this with a former election commissioner, Virginia Martin. Kudos to her. Very dedicated and knowledgeable. Yeah, that's a great word for Virginia Martin, election official. And basically what you're doing here, and I'm going to start to blow this up so you can really see different parts of it a little bit better. And we're going to start at the top. The top row is where we write in. At the very top of the form, you just put the location and your name and the candidate's name, things like that. But here on the top row is where we do the electronic poll book check-in. And you just basically go down the row of electronic poll book tables. This is in Brooklyn, in New York City, but many locations have this. And you write down the number of voters who have checked in by that time. You can see I was there this was at the close of polls. It was 8:15 p.m. This was during early voting, so the polls closed that day, I think around 8 o'clock. And so you can see at table 1, there were 128 voters that checked in, at table 2, 77 voters that checked in, and 66 voters checked in at table 3. I saw that paperwork. I saw the paperwork for that. They had already closed down the voting, the electronic poll books when I got there, but they showed me their numbers. They had written them down for their reports. That was for table 1, 2, and 3. And then table 4 and 5, I saw the numbers myself on the electronic poll books. They had 78 voters and 131 voters at table 5. And those numbers, they seem pretty much approximately the same. There's a range there from about 66 up to 131, but that's not an unusual range. People are going to different tables. Usually, if there's different districts, different either precincts or districts in one location, they might have a district that doesn't have big turnout and a district that has, more dense turnout. Those numbers look sort of average to you, Bennie, in terms of one day of early voting, people checking in at different tables?
Well, it's always county specific. So in a county, 3,000 people, that would be really high. But so, I mean, it just depends on the county.
This is New York City. This is
a
fairly
precinct, so I wouldn't know. I mean, it's typical. It doesn't look like a wild number.
This is in Brooklyn, so most of Brooklyn is pretty densely populated. And then you just add those numbers up, and it comes to 480 voters that are checked in there at the tables. And then I went down to the ballots that were scanned in at the machines. And this is the public counter at the end of the day. Again, it was 8:15 p.m. And scanner A, 240, scanner B, 239, scanner C, 242, scanner D, 227, and scanner E, 230. So you're seeing those numbers also. Those were the numbers that I saw myself on the scanner of how many voters who had voted. And I added those up, and I got total ballots scanned 1,178. And then I saw that there had only been 480 voters who checked in, and that there were 698 more ballots scanned than voters who voted. Do you want to just talk about your response to that, Bennie?
The first question you asked is the ballot printed and there's multi-page. If there's an election where we have a 3-page ballot, then that could be the reason. But it would be a perfect number. It wouldn't, if you had 100 people voting 3-page ballots, then you would say 100 voters, but 300 ballots scanned. So that's not the case, because it would be a perfect number. So that is definitely a reason to look further at why those numbers have that discrepancy.
Right. You always do want to look for a legitimate reason for a discrepancy like this. And that's really great that Bennie's pointing that out. You don't want to just jump to conclusions and say, oh my God, it's fraud. There's often legitimate reasons for things that look unusual. In this particular case, it was a 2-page ballot, but in New York, the scanners are programmed, and there's 2 counters on the scanner, actually. One is called the public counter, and one is called the protective counter. And actually, I can show you that on this. I can show you that on the form again. I'm sorry, I just closed it out.
Those numbers in the thousands.
I'm going to open it up again and show you.
It's good to explain because those numbers are in the thousands.
I don't know why you're breaking up a little bit.
Let me put my mic closer. I said it's good to explain those because those numbers are in the thousands.
Okay, yeah. So let me show you the protective counter and explain what that is, because people probably do not know the difference between the protective counter and the public counter. So the protective counter is a second counter on the scanner. And those are the numbers down below. I mean, I can blow it up even more, actually, so you can really see that. So you see over here, it says protective count, final protective count. So the protective counter is like the odometer on your car. So the public count is just the voters that have scanned their ballot during that voting session. And then the protective counter is how many pages that machine has scanned in its entire life, its entire service. So that particular scanner, scanner A, had at the end of that day scanned 4,492 pages in its entire lifespan, all the time that it had been in service. But it only scanned 240 ballots since the start of early voting. This was sort of in the middle of early voting when I came in. And so the reason why I bring that up is because Bennie was talking about pages. So this is in New York, and every state is different, and different machines are programmed differently. In New York, the protective counter counts pages, the public counter counts voters. So if you have a 2-page ballot, which we did, then you have to, if you're trying to reconcile numbers between, say, the public counter and the protective counter, then you'd have to count 2 pages for the public counter to equal the protective counter. And you'd also have to have the number that you started with at the start of the day, because remembering that that protective counter has been in service for many, many elections previously. So those numbers we did look at, and I will tell you that they did not explain this discrepancy. And one basic way that you can know that is if you look at the discrepancy, and you can see that the discrepancy is 698 more ballots than voters. If it was an issue of the machine somehow not counting 2 pages correctly, then you would have doubled 480. And if you double 480, you're going to get 960. So if it was a question of the machine actually having to count 2 pages and it's somehow making a mistake there, you would have 960 instead of 1178. So that was not the explanation. Although when we contacted the New York City Board of Elections, they tried to say that that was the explanation, but we were confident that that was not the correct explanation.
18 short.
What?
218 short.
It's just not, that's not the explanation for that, for that discrepancy. There may be an explanation. We have yet to find out what that explanation is. And I will tell you the lengths that we've gone to at this point to try and find out, because we did go to quite a few lengths to try to find this out. And then we have a question here. This is a good question. The question is, do scanned numbers include mail-in ballots? So, and the answer is yes, but they are separate. So
that's
generally,
central count.
Right. So here in New York, we have hand-marked paper ballots and ballot marking devices in the polling location, and we scan our ballots here as we mark our ballot, and then each individual puts their ballot into the scanner. So those are what are called precinct-based scanners, and these are the numbers that we were checking in this particular public oversight exercise. We were checking the precinct scanners. There are separate scanners, and they scan much faster. They're called high-speed scanners. I believe that one of the models, for example, the DS650 from ES&S scans about 300 ballots per minute. They're really fast. And so obviously it's a much more efficient process. So the scanned numbers do include mail-in ballots, but they are separate scanners.
Also, when you consider the logistics, if you just walk through the process, a mail-in voter isn't mailing their ballot to an early voting place. They're mailing that to the operations center. So the operations center is the only place that's going to receive that type of mail. And then there's a rigorous process of checking the signature and a bunch of other things. So there should be no way in any form of chain of custody that a ballot can end up out of an envelope and into this count. It shouldn't happen.
Okay, so the next question is, what exactly caused this discrepancy? And we really, really wanted to know. So the appropriate thing when you're a poll watcher, you are supposed to report that to the inspector at the location. I did report that. They were not interested. They were very interested in getting out of there. They were already really mad at me that I was there to begin with and was anyway holding them up.
Lulu almost got a charge, y'all.
they were not happy with me. I did also report it to the New York City Board of Elections and the Brooklyn Board of Elections. And again, we got a very perfunctory response, basically saying, well, we just think that's because you don't understand that there were 2 pages to the ballot. But we do understand that there are 2 pages to the ballot, and that was not the explanation. I also did then reach out to the State Board of Elections, and again, they did not have an explanation for that. And they didn't really try to offer an explanation for that. They said, basically there were any number of explanations, but they really didn't offer one. So that was not very fruitful. But Bennie said that the thing that we needed to do was to find the participating voter lists, the PVLs. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about PVLs and why that would help us. And then I will tell you the links that I've gone to so far to try to get the PVLs. I will also say that I did actually call the FBI and report this to the FBI. But as far as I know, no investigation has been done.
And so the PVLs are a critical piece of information during the early voting period. I haven't been able to see where it's a statutory authority, but I guess it must be a part of either federal law or it's just passed down to the states. But each day after early voting, the election commission or the election administrators are supposed to run a participating voter listing and publish that. And it's basically the name and address and precinct information of every voter who participated in the election the day before. So if that 240 was the only number that walked into that, or the 480, if you just take the 480 number, there should be a CSV file produced the next day that has that early voting site in it with 480 names inside of it. And you can literally look up that those people came from their respective precincts and walked into that early voting site and know who those people are.
So I should be able to get the participating voter list of every voter who voted at that location up until, that point in early voting, and we should be able to look at those numbers and see how many it was supposed to be.
Yeah, so much so. And one reason for this, aside from just being a very good accounting measure, is that you have campaigns that are relying on the number of participants to either check off the list of people that they contacted, but also you have people doing direct mails, you have them doing door knocking, you have them doing robocalls. All of these operations are relying on the remaining available voters. So if they can't remove this from their list, then basically you could go door knock the same people. So you could have in a county, I think in early voting in Shelby County, we voted 300,000 of 600,000 people in early voting. So if day one, 50,000 people come and vote, and you're trying to reach out to the constituency so that you can ask them for their vote, it would be bad for you to keep talking to the same people. So the two-party system has it where that's emailed directly to them, or they have a nightly feed or something from the state where they can remove those from these applications that they sell campaigns. So it is a well-known document. It's something that I've literally lived by, that document. That's how my predictions program, that's how I figure out if I'm accurate or not. So it's definitely something that every campaign is familiar with.
So these are common documents that the Board of Elections is supposed to have available on a daily basis. They should be easily available, correct?
Yeah, I got a million of them.
Do you want to just show us what one looks like? Or you
I emailed it to you, but
okay. What address did you email it to? The same one I sent to you?
Sugarworks. Let me see.
Okay. Let me see if I have it right here. Okay. Here, Bennie just emailed it to me. Okay. So it's just.
And you see that long list of people. So in Shelby County, instead of putting on FTP, I know, but our election administrator, they say, well, if you want to be a part of this daily process, send us your email address, and we probably have 400 people that sign up each election, and she mails out that cumulative file and sometimes a daily file, because some campaigns can't back out duplicates from a prior day, or they may miss a day and the cumulative file catches them up.
So that whole list that whole email list is all the people who are receiving these
Yeah,
participating voter
it
list.
goes out every day.
Well,
Like I'm talking about, we complaining at 12 o'clock. Where's the file? Where's the file? And I get a lot of phone calls as a commissioner. Look, she's not giving us the files. We depend on this. We have to take these people out. We're getting ready to drop a direct mail, and we can't put these take these names out. And I literally have to call her and say, Ms. Phillips, can you please send the files out?
okay, so this is a very straightforward document. So what Bennie is describing is just, he sent me, he forwarded me an email, and I think I can share my screen here and I can show you guys just like how many people are receiving this participating voter list. So you'll be able to.
John Brakey's comment up. He said in Arizona we call it a signature roster. So everybody, no matter what it's called, everybody knows what it is. So John, hey John, what's up, John? So he's in here saying it's called a signature roster, but he knows what it is. Immediately he knows what it is.
I just want to show people how many. So this is the list itself. Are you seeing that?
This is from the presidential preference primary in 2020.
Okay, so this is just a basic spreadsheet, folks. It's just a spreadsheet, and it has the voters who voted in that particular. Is this in one day, in one location?
Yes, one day. So I think the name of that file says 2025. It's like, it says through, so that's a cumulative file. So that's through, what's that, Valentine's Day?
Early voting. It has the party.
Yeah.
It has the voters ID.
PVL through 2014. So 214. So if early voting started on the 1st, that would be 14 days worth of early voting. If it started on the 13th, that's 2 days.
And has one more. Sorry, we're overlapping each other a little bit. Try not to do that.
Yeah, it tells you what early voting location they went to. So if we filter for the precinct that you had, we should get 480 people.
Right. So I'm moving the tab over so you can see it has voting location. I'll try to blow this up pretty big for you so you can see voting location. You guys, this isn't New York. Now this is Bennie's state. This is in Tennessee. You see voting location. It has all those locations. So we were trying to get the participating voter lists for our location where we had that anomaly, which was a high school. It was FDR High School. We would be able, if we had gotten these participating voter lists, to select, the high school and then see how many voters were voting. And it would have been through the entire early voting period, Bennie, but we should be able to get it up to, we want all the voters who voted up to that day of early voting. We should be able to get that.
If you look at the file that you have is a cumulative. It actually has cumulative in the name. So they send it out as an individual day, or they'll send out a cumulative file. So if you go further, it'll say the day that they voted. You'll see that there are multiple days inside of that file.
So inside that file, we can, because it only has one tab. So inside,
go to the right, yeah.
Oh, this is the day that they voted.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you guys? I'm sliding that over. Yeah, you guys are able to see that. Okay, so if we can get this from Brooklyn, we'll be able to find out all of the people who voted up to the day that we had that report, which I believe was June 16th.
And if you look at row 18, it has January the 14th. Obviously, early voting was happening. So if you look at the voting method, that'll be a mail ballot. Somebody mailed it in.
Oh, they mailed that early, huh?
That'll be a mail-in ballot, yeah.
I see. And then you go through all the dates. These are all very early. Okay, so this is February. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you how hard it has been for me to try to get this very basic document that is emailed out to dozens, maybe hundreds of people on a regular basis, and and how I have, to this date, which is November, been unable to get this information from the New York City Board of Elections. So I called the New York. It's okay. I called the New York City Board of Elections and I said, I want
this live show.
Well, are you taking personal calls on the show now, Bennie?
No, I can't get my phone on silent quick enough. So
why don't you turn it on silent at the start of the show?
I thought it was.
We have a thing where people just call Bennie during the show. Sometimes Bennie calls me during the forum. So if you guys want to call me during the forum, go right ahead and we'll just.
Hey, John, call me, John.
We'll take some calls that way. We have questions that are in the chat and we're going to get to them, but I want to just push through and try to show you guys the basic concept. what we found, the problem with what we found, how easy it really could be to resolve this problem, and how just sort of dysfunctional or obstructionist the New York City Board of Elections is. So I called the New York City Board of Elections and I said, I'd like the participating voter list. And they said, oh, okay, well, you need to send to this particular email address. And it was data@nyc.boe. And I did, in fact, promptly send an email, and I believe, yeah, you're going to see this. I'm going to scroll on this document from the bottom to the top, so you're going to follow me. So on Friday, June 18th, so very promptly, we found this information on June 16th, and right away, I sent an email to the place where I was directed. It was data@boe.nyc, and I said, please send me the PVL, participating voter list, for every day of voting so far in the early voting at the polling location, FDR High School. And I said the dates that I wanted, June 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, please send today if possible, and gave them my phone number in case there was any problem. Well, I didn't hear from them. And so then about 11 days later, on June 29th, I sent the same request. This time I CC'd my attorney, Arthur Schwartz, the public relations person, Valerie Vasquez, at the New York City Board of Elections, who is supposed to be communicating with the public and taking care of these things. And I sent the same request. And I also said, this is a public records request. You are legally required to respond within 5 business days. We have not received the participating voter list that we requested more than 10 days ago, right? And I asked for the same thing. I did not hear from them. And then again, on August 21st, I sent the same request. I am sending this public records request. And this time I sent it to that address, to Valerie Vasquez, as well as to vote@BOE, which is, I believe, is like a general mailbox for them. And I also CC'd the director of election operations at the State Board of Elections, the co-director of the State Board of Elections, Douglas Kellner. And I also specifically sent the same email to Douglas Kellner's personal email, which we don't need to show there. But I still did not hear back from them. And that was in August. Nobody responded. So then yesterday, I, get ready to tackle this again. So I called Valerie Vasquez. I have her phone number on speed dial in my phone, as you might imagine. And she said that there's a different email address that I have to send it to, despite the fact that I was given this email, data@boe.nyc, twice when I called. 2 separate employees gave me that email. No, she said, I'm supposed to send it to foil@boe.nyc. And then, in fact, when I looked on the website, they had a completely different email address, which was I don't think I sent a separate email. They had another even longer email address on their website for FOIL. So I sent to both of those FOIL email addresses. And then when I sent the same address, keep in mind, this is the 4th time that I've requested this very basic data. I did then finally get a response from the New York City Board of Elections, which said to me that they will look into this before 90 days after the date of this notice. So this is November. By mid-December this is November.
New election by then.
Right? That's November, all of December, all of January. By the end of January, the New York City Board of Elections might be able to provide me with the participating voter list, which is a standard document that any Board of Elections should be able to produce within a day.
For some elections, that's actually the time period where they can discard the information. They wouldn't be able for this one because it's a federal election.
That would be very convenient, wouldn't it?
That's a little rude, but it's a federal election, so it'd be 22 months. But yeah, that's a little rough.
If it turns
out,
like
crowd in there.
Okay, so this is your update on the Brooklyn Transparency Pilot Project. So meanwhile, we are moving forward. And the thing to keep in mind is that this is a very important check. We are checking the number of voters who checked in to the number of ballots scanned. And it checks 2 things, really. It checks whether or not the machines themselves are counting accurately. And it also checks for just really basic things like ballot stuffing, as Bennie said. And this is a separate check from what we did in 2020, which was a check of where we looked for the poll tapes. if people remember that we did our Count the Vote project, and we had volunteers photograph poll tapes all over the country. And the reason why I want you to think about these are two separate checks that they go hand in hand with each other. So when you vote at the polling location, or if you mail your ballot in, that vote goes through a whole series of technological adventures, right? So the first thing that happens is it goes through the scanner, and it could be either changed or somehow accidentally not counted in that scanner. And then after the scanners tabulate those votes on memory cards, those memory cards get taken to the central location, the central county location, and those memory cards get taken into another computer and pulled into a election management system, an EMS system, and then they go through a whole nother technology adventure. They go through a whole series of programs. Do you want to name just like a couple of the programs that they go through when they get to the central counting location, Bennie?
Well, the names are different. We have an Epic server here. Yeah, it's a number of. We got all types of. I think what's the name of that? I wouldn't know right offhand. We got it's a number of different vendors. So
But what are the basic programs? Like once those memory cards go into the system, what are kind of the steps that the votes then go through before they get published as,
Yeah, so it
results?
varies, but we have certain computers like they turn into aggregating computers. I mean, we have still direct recording electronics here, so we're in GMs. So some go to the poll books, which is a different vendor, but we have two series of vendors. So we have part ES&S and part another vendor who I can't think of the name of. But our early votes, they get directionally tabulated in a early voting style DRE that becomes a aggregator. So then all the memory cards are loaded into that one ballot marking device, if you will, and it loads and summarizes all of those memory cards. And then those memory cards are then transmitted over a network wire to the central count tabulator. So that's how the totals come in. And that's separate from the polling places one, which are sent to zones and then transferred over dial-up lines, if you will. And those are then sent to the central tabulator too. So
each one of those votes, after they go through a scanner, goes through probably at least two separate computer programs, an aggregation and then a transmission, most likely.
Yes.
Right. So this is just to say your vote, after you cast it, goes through probably at least three separate computer programs before those results get distributed as preliminary results. And unless they're being robustly audited, which we already know in many states is not happening, that's pretty much the vote. That's pretty much the count. It doesn't really get checked. So that's why it's so important that we're doing this independent auditing, us and other organizations, other election protection organizations, but we are really in the trenches here, on the front lines of this work that is not really being done in many places. And it's very important that we expand this program and scale up. And so the program that we developed here in the Brooklyn Transparency Project, that is checking the scanners, like in the polling location. The program that we developed where we're photographing poll tapes, that is checking that your vote got counted accurately when it left the polling location, all the way to the two systems that Bennie described where it gets actually reported as preliminary results. So those two programs are complementary to each other, and together they can give you a fairly robust check on the election results. And we will be trying to roll out these programs, as I said, for the midterms 2022, probably in relatively small pilot programs still, but we are scaling up and moving this out to the best of our ability. And that is one reason it is so important that we do get funds and we do get donations, because we are trying to scale up. And I actually do see people on the line who have given donations, and I have to say, our heart goes out to you. Thank you so much. We're so grateful, so grateful for the donations that we've received. So, and if you do want to donate to us, I will just put the link into the chat. You can find it at smartelections.us if you go to donate. And if you click on that, it does take you directly to the website where you can make the donation. Fractured Atlas, that's our fiscal sponsor. So you can make a donation via this link. And we really do hope you will make a donation, any amount that is comfortable for you. We have people who are making $5 or $10 donations per month. That's really helpful. A monthly donation helps us to, you know, have a stable income. We have people who are donating thousands of dollars to us because they can afford us and they believe in our work, and we're so grateful. So whatever your comfort level is, if it's $50, if it's $300, if it's $5, we're really grateful, and we hope that you will make a donation. And let's go through, and so we should probably just put up a banner that for people who maybe aren't hearing, I'm sure we have a banner that says, please donate.
Well, if I could underscore the importance while you getting the banner and while everybody's reaching in your pockets, I got my preacher suit on, so we're taking a offering. That was the case for me in Memphis, right? With the memory cards in that exercise told the tabulator that it counted everything that was on the memory cards, but it didn't. And because I checked it at the precinct level, I was able to then check against the aggregated total to see that something was wrong. So that's the reason why you need to check it at a few different phases in the process to make sure that nothing dropped out during the handoff from one place to another. I think John Brakey has a video of Florida where their precinct tabulators use a cell phone modem and they transmit the totals wirelessly. So that's a problem for us, but nonetheless, that's the method that Broward County uses.
So, and I actually do have a, here's a copy of that poll tape that Benny's talking about. So this is, so the discrepancy that we found in Brooklyn, that was a discrepancy in the polling location. Somehow there's some sort of discrepancy with the scanners. And then the discrepancy that Benny's describing was a discrepancy that must have happened between the polling location and when the results were actually certified. Right, and you can see here, his poll tape shows what the votes were at the polling location. You can see that there were 548 votes, and then when they were reported and certified, there were only 330 votes, and each candidate did lose votes. So we've covered that fairly extensively, so I don't want to spend too much time on that, but you can have discrepancies in either place. And I actually am we're gonna take a couple questions, and then I want to show you one other discrepancy, or actually two other discrepancies that we've been able to locate with this project. And those are also really important things to check for. So let's go ahead. I know I saw that Tom Shipley had a question, and I want to get that in. Tom Shipley said, you mentioned that you came in the middle of early voting. Does the public count include scanned ballots from previous days? So I'm sure that different counties do this differently. In New York, early voting is one long election day, and they just roll it over each day. So by the end of the 10th day of early voting, you might have, you know, a couple, quite a large number of people, sometimes maybe 1,000 people who have voted like on a particular scanner or checked into a particular polling location. That did not affect our paperwork because we were checking the number of people who had checked in so far and the number of ballots that had been scanned so far. So those numbers still were supposed to match. But yes, the scanned ballots are included from the previous days, and the voters. So both kind of technologies are rolling over, Tom. The electronic poll books are rolling over. Every day they're adding in more and more voters. So on the first day of early voting, the electronic poll book might say 100, and on the second day, it might say 200, and on the third day, it might say 300. I'm just doing those, you know, for like easy numbers, so it's clear. Scanner's the same. First scanner, it might say 100 the first day, 200 the second day. So they're all rolling over. This is New York. I do not know that. I am learning more about how early voting is done in other states. Do you know how you guys do early voting, Bennie? Tennessee?
Yeah. However, though, to his point, what is written is a snapshot of the day. So that is who walked in that day, that 240 number at that table is the number of people for that day. The long odometer reading is a, in Memphis we call it a machine technician's report. Or if you guys hear all this, John gonna blow a gasket, but this logic and accuracy, the logic and accuracy test that's done on the machines before the election, they do something where they zero the totals out. They say there are no votes cast right now. So the odometer reading inside of the election is the running counter of the particular election. The other odometer reading is the running odometer reading of the machine, right? And that machine technician's report will tell you, we zeroed this out. So there should, if 1,000 people voted, the short counter should say 1,000 people voted. The daily tallies should show you 100 person, 100, 100 until you got to 10 days, and then that equals 1,000. So it's a little bit of math there, but it's typically the same everywhere.
All right. That was a little bit confusing to me, Benny, but I'm going to try to see if we can clarify it. I think what you're saying is that in the early voting in Tennessee, you guys have a clean day of early voting. You have a clean day of voting every day of early voting. You guys start from scratch. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're going to write down the number of people who walked in and voted.
We do it differently in New York. In New York, we roll it every day. So early voting, 10 days of early voting is like one long election day in New York.
Right, but the snapshot when you write it down, you can't. We're gonna scratch over 240 and add 241. Like you're gonna have a new sheet each day, so you have a snapshot of each day.
Okay, so you do okay, but in terms of the electronic poll books and the scanners, which is what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
poll
right.
watchers are able
It's the same for us too, but you don't have a PVL. We have a PVL to tell you what the delineation is. That's why the PVL is important, because it'll tell you, yes, I have a cumulative total, but I'll make the delineation of which people was on which day.
This is a little bit confusing for people, I think. And one of the reasons is that, so Bennie is an election commissioner. He works inside the elections. I'm an election, oversight coordinator. So I'm working kind of externally with poll watchers. So you're getting the election officials' perspective from Bennie, and you're getting the poll watchers' perspective from me. And they're a little bit different. So I think that is confusing. But I want to just hone in on one of the things that you're talking about and make sure that we do try to clear this up. And let's try to get all our questions in too. We have this from Donna McKee. She said, who can you request the list of participating voters from, and can anyone request it?
Yeah, anyway, it should be a local county election commission. I mean, the administrator of elections or a coordinator or some member of staff should. It's basically them resolving the poll books to the number of people who participated, and they should publish that. There are some nuance in that, and I don't think we need to go into detail, but there are protected voters that don't show up. Like we have a safe at home program in Tennessee where if you're a battered spouse or something like that, they don't publish your name. So there are ways that you will not see names on that list, but you should be able to go and any registered voter should be able to request that list.
Okay, now I'm going to walk you through a couple other discrepancies that we found quickly here so that we can, I want you to understand there's other things that can be learned from this process that we did. So this is the next day we went back to try to find out what had happened and see if it was still out of whack. So this is the same polling location on the next day, and we have somewhat more complete information because at this point we started really writing down every number that we could. So one of the things that I want to show you here, just to make sure that we get to it. So Bennie keeps talking about odometer. He keeps saying odometer. And why does he keep saying odometer? So that's because on a scanner, there's on our scanners, at least in New York, there's two different ways that the machine can count. And it literally has two different counters built into it. And one is called the public counter, and one is called the protective counter. And I've blown that up really big so you can see. The public counter is the number of votes for that session. And for early voting, as I said, a session can go for 10 days, but it's how many voters have voted up to that point in that session. And at this location, it was 240 at the start of the day, and the public counter at the end of the day was 296. So that means 56 people voted on that machine. And we actually wrote that down below to sort of help us sort it out. So it says how many votes on each scanner. There it was 56. Now the protective counter is different. The protective counter is like an odometer on your car, and it tells you how many votes have been on that scanner its whole life, its whole time in service. And in this particular machine, you can see it's been used a fair number of times. It was 4,492 at the start of the day, and then the final protective counter number was 4,595. Now, we did some computations here, and again, I said that this form would be a little bit heavy on math, but basically what we did was we took the number of people who voted, that's 56, and we multiplied it by 2, because remember there were 2 pages on the ballot in this election. So that makes that 112, and we added 112 to 4,492, and we got our expected protective counter, which was 4,604. And then we looked at the protective counter to see if that's what it actually got, and lo and behold, it was not. It was 9 short. That's 9 pages short. That's kind of a lot for one scanner. That's probably 4 to 5 voters that it's counting differently than the other counter on the same scanner. And then what's really disturbing is that if you go down the row here, every single scanner at that location was actually out of sync between the public counter and the protective counter. The next one down was 6 short, then 4 short, 14 short, and 6 short. So for a total discrepancies between the public counter and the protective counter, the final protective counter was 39 pages short. This is in one location in Brooklyn. It's almost 20 voters short. Keep in mind that some races are so close, like in the 2000 presidential race in Florida, it was almost a statistical tie. That race between Al Gore and George Bush was won by 1 vote per precinct in Florida. It was 540 votes, I think. 1 vote per precinct. This, the final protective counter, seems to be short almost 20 votes in one location.
One location, yeah.
So, and this is literally the same scanner is counting 2 different ways. The same scanner has 2 counts that don't reconcile. It has a public count and it has a private and a protective count. And you can see here, I'm kind of pulling back so you can see more of the document, but these are the same scanners. Scanner A, B, C, D, and E all have a discrepancy. So one of those counters is wrong. They're both counting the same people who were voting. One of the counts has to be wrong. And this is very concerning. So this was another thing that we were able to discover from doing this public oversight project. So I do hope that you're going to be joining us when we do these public oversight projects coming up. We'll do another one during the primary of 2022, and we'll be ready for the general election in 2022. And Kelly is saying that these are very important, but we're in a lull right now with public interest. But I'm not so sure about that. I think there was a lot of interest in the Arizona audit, and I think that there is increasing interest in trying to really be able to say with confidence that our election results are accurate, and if not, why not, to really zero in on that. So that's our forum for tonight. It's 8 o'clock, and we do hope that you'll join us in 2 weeks. We're going to be doing a best of forum about the machinery of voting. That's like clips from all of the different forums that we've done, or many of the forums that we've done, that actually talk about the different election equipment and voting equipment and systems. And we'll be doing some, best of to try to put all that together in a comprehensive way. Next week, we are going to have a documentary on next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. It's called Call It Democracy. And I'll pull up the flyer for that. Bennie, you want to just any last thoughts for people?
No, tune in next week. It's November. We got next November the 16th. Well, next weekend. But for this one, November the 16th is the date. Mark your calendar. The best
Absolutely.
stuff is pretty fun. I see how much weight I gained.
So we've been showing documentaries every other Tuesday when we don't have a forum, and we watch them on Zoom together. We've had 2 so far that were really fascinating, and I highly recommend that you grab this one. It's called Call It Democracy, and it's by Matthew Cohn, a filmmaker, and some of that information that I was talking to you about how though the race in Florida in 2000 was so close, is from this film. It was data that I got from watching this film. There's just some really, really fascinating information that he puts together there. And so I encourage you to join us then. That's on November 9th at 7 p.m. I will put the link in the chat for that Zoom. If you go to our website at smartelections.us, you will find all of this information. And I'll share my screen with you because we have a calendar also that we are using on our website now. So if you're not sure about when something is, you can jump on our website. It's smartelections.us. We did put that up earlier, and let me go ahead and share that screen with you, and then I'll walk you through how you can find things if you lose track of these dates. Just go to our website and scroll down, and all of these events are on our front page now. So coming up, you have the documentary. That's Call It Democracy, and then the forum after that is going to be the forum about the machinery of voting. And we do have a calendar on the website now. So you just go to events calendar, and I'm just making sure, yeah, this is showing. You go to the events calendar, and you just click on that, and that has all of the events together there. And if you want to join us for that documentary next week, go ahead and get signed up. You're going to need the Zoom link. So I'm just going to put that in the chat. Let's Call It Democracy, and you're going to join us there. It's Tuesday, November 9th. So go ahead and get signed up for that. Okay. So that's it. We hope that you really learned a lot. We see Donna there. This was very informative. Thank you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Donna.
Really appreciate those positive comments. Greatly informative. Thank you so much, Marta, for being here. So we really appreciate it. So remember, this is what democracy looks like.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.